And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here today with Bailey Lipschultz in for Katie Greifeld. We're taking you through to that closing bell with the global simulcast. Tim Stenovec joins us in the radio booth. Norah Mulinda in today for Carol Masser. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms. That's television, that's radio, and that is YouTube. A flat to higher open for the S&P, the SOX, and the NASDAQ today. We bottomed out, though, Tim Stenovec, right around 2 p.m., a big sell-off, and now seeing a bit of dip buying heading into the closing bell.
Yeah, it's notable to see the S&P 500 could actually end in the green depending on what happens in the next couple of seconds. We should, because Katie's gone, just say that the Dow, which is her favorite index, is at a record.
It is.
More than 1.1%, 580 points to the upside.
And it's interesting.
I love it when you quote Dow points, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
You know it's a day.
Only when Katie's away.
Yeah.
We'll give it to her today. Well, I mean, we've really been seeing this broader rotation. That's what we've been hearing from the guests that we've been speaking to here on Business Week. And we've continuing to see this rotation from tech into some of the more defensive sectors in the market. And it's just interesting as to whether or not we're going to continue to see this, especially when we think about the fact that the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index just saw its best quarter on record. But now we're seeing a pullback today.
All I really care about is if we see a bounce back on Monday for semis. Romaine, this has been a market that you see a sell-off. We see some news overnight across Asia. Again, we have a shortened trading week this week. Long weekend, there could be some news coming out of South Korea that I think could spark some excitement or pessimism.
Yeah, and speaking of the shortened trading week, so Carol gets a 4-day weekend? Is that how this works?
Well, she's actually at the wedding at Madison Square Garden.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know she was one of the bridesmaids.
She's one of the 1,000 people purportedly invited.
Oh, well, congratulations to those.
She couldn't tell me anything because she signed an NDA.
All right. Well, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rallying, as Tim said, about 592 points on the day, up about 1.1% to a record high. You hear the cheering there on the floor of the stock exchange in the NYSE as you see several of the service members there in town here for the July 4th and, more importantly, the 250th celebration of our Declaration of Independence. The S&P 500 is going to close flat on the day. The NASDAQ down about 0.8%. The Russell 2000 also going to be down on the day by about 0.6%.
The chanting kind of sounding like what we heard at the game last night in Santa Clara, California, when the U.S. won 2-0 against Bosnia-Herzegovina. So check it out on Monday night, U.S. versus Belgium. Did you guys know I was such a big soccer fan?
Tim, you're a big sports ball guy, is what I heard.
Guy.
Every sport. You did call out, though, that it wasn't in San Francisco, even though TV would try to tell you otherwise.
I know. Come on. Everyone knows
California.
it's not really in San Francisco. Hey, in the S&P 500, the vast majority of stocks moved higher. 357 higher, 146 fell today, even though things finished pretty much flat.
Yeah, and looking at this sector level, Tim, you wouldn't expect this to be a market that was flat. Healthcare up more than 2.5%. Consumer staples up in a similar fashion alongside utilities and materials, both up more than 2%. But the big drag, info tech, down 1.5%. So a lot of green on that screen, but the one that matters, deep in the red.
Let's take a look at some stocks that moved to the upside today.
Wow, Tim, I see you're kind of rattled with Carol not there.
Yeah.
It just kind of fills the vacuum.
I hope she's watching. You think she's watching right now?
Probably rooting for you.
I hope so.
All right, well, let's talk about what Apple did, up more than 4.8% today. This after Nikkei reported that Apple has told its suppliers to produce about 10 million foldable phones this year, up from an earlier forecast of 7 to 8 million units. It's part of plans to release at least 5 new models in the second half of this year and the first half of next year. This is supposedly the long-anticipated foldable phone. Mark Gurman did report last month camera-equipped AirPods are scheduled to launch in late 2027, and the company is also preparing a slew of new chips for future devices built on the next-generation silicon manufacturing process. Apple shares higher by 4.8%. Also, shares of Rivian moving to the upside today. This after the company raised its full-year sales outlook. It begins deliveries of that lower-cost SUV. Rivian shares up by more than 8.4% today. The company expects to deliver between 65,000 and 70,000 vehicles this year. It delivered 12,200 EVs in the second quarter. That new R2 SUV is seen as key for the company's ability to eventually reach profitability. Still, the starting price around $58,000. And finally, shares of hospital operators gained Thursday. Tenet Healthcare was up today by more than 6.5%. HCA was up by 4.4%. This after the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services proposed revising payment policies for hospital outpatient departments and ambulatory surgical centers. That begins in 2027. It targeted drug cost reductions and site of care payment disparities. We also saw universal health services move to the upside as a result of this, Norah.
Well, let's talk about some of the stocks that ended in the red. We've been talking so much about chip stocks today. The worst performing stock in the S&P 500 actually belongs to SanDisk. So we did talk about the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index logging its best quarter ever just for the second quarter. But the past 2 days, it's been in the red, sinking more than 5% today as we end on this holiday shortened week. Now, the information reported that Anthropic has begun early stage work on its own AI chip. And it's also held talks with Samsung as a potential manufacturing partner. So you clearly saw that pressuring a lot of these semiconductor stocks. Micron, SanDisk, Applied Materials also in focus. And from there, I want to pivot over to automakers. Tesla ending down about 7.5%. The worst performing stock within the Mag 7 today. We did talk with Craig Trudell. Of course, he is the managing editor of Global Business Americas for the print site here at Bloomberg. Talking about the fact that he was surprised. Of course, we did get some second quarter deliveries for Tesla that did top expectations, but it was still not high enough in terms of what we were expecting from the investor standpoint. It didn't meet the bar. We did see the stock seeing its biggest drop in nearly a year. And lastly, over in the consumer space, retail. Looking at American Eagle, down about 4.9%. 4.8% on the day. Now, this is a new CFO that is effective next month. We've been seeing some shifts within the company. We know that the stock has really been pressured this year, generally speaking, just from the macroeconomic landscape, consumers pulling back on discretionary spending, and some diverging brand performance that we've been seeing at the company, and persistent margin pressures.
All right, let's check in on yields here. A mixed picture on the day. Remember, the bond markets did close early at 2 p.m. ahead of the observance of the July 4th holiday tomorrow. Lower yields on your 2-year and your 5-year, higher on the long end of the curve, though we should point out on a weekly basis that entire curve did shift higher.
I hate to be such a downer ahead of a holiday weekend.
Uh-oh.
Did you know that we're not having as much fun in the U.S. anymore as we used to?
Okay.
Here's something that's interesting. Double-digit percentage drops in hours spent on arts and entertainment activities.
Yeah.
We attend fewer sports or recreational events. We attend fewer, or when we host fewer social events. Ben Steverman writes for Bloomberg Businessweek about America suffering from a fun shortage. And one of the metrics that he looks at, Norah, is golf courses, bars and nightclubs that have closed. And also, we just don't own as many boats.
Yeah, he says that Americans now own 1.3 million fewer boats.
Wow.
I never owned a boat, but apparently that's the case broadly
Don't
in
they
the
say
United
the best
States.
day of a...
I was about to say, every boat owner I know all just complains about owning a boat.
Right.
I've always said, the best way to own a boat is to just have a friend who owns a boat.
That is the only way.
Then get on the
With
boat.
it. But I did think it was an interesting story, and it kind of talks about this idea. I don't know. It seems a little pessimistic, but then it kind of reminded me, there was another story that the Wall Street Journal had out today, how bowlers apparently aren't having as much fun, at least the serious bowlers, because they're saying like all these bowling alleys are just turning into nightclubs. They talk about Lucky Strike, which is obviously just trying to appeal to basically people who don't take bowling seriously. But look, they're having fun. Look at the kids. I don't know what they're doing there. But if you actually have a real bowling league and you're trying to keep score, apparently it's not the best time.
Yeah, it's not the best time, but the funny thing is, Romaine, I think these are companies that, want to make money, and what generates revenue? Selling beer, selling snacks, inviting the kids and having them blow $35 on the arcade games. It is kind of interesting, according to that journal article.
$35. Have you been to an arcade lately?
I have not been to an arcade, but I did spend money
that's
at
cute. That's like the first 10 minutes.
Bailey, just so you know, they don't even accept cash anymore. You buy a card ahead of time.
Yeah.
I hate it.
And you just swipe the card.
Tim,
on the
do you
arcade
use
machine.
Bitcoin when you do that, though, or do you use...
No, wouldn't that be nice?
Not one reference to the Big Lebowski, guys.
Oh, sorry.
Talking about bowling, I'm just extremely disappointed.
You were waiting for that.
It really ties the room together.
It's fine. I'll
Thank
have
you
a
for
White
that.
Russian tonight, though.
There we go. Okay, that's good. I hope you guys get some bowling, or at least do whatever you can to stay cool this week. And a very happy 4th of July to both of you.